Hello, ladies and gents. It's part number... Oh my god, I have canker sores that hurt so bad. Oh my god, that kills. Oh my god, my mouth. Oh, pain. Oh my god. I don't know if you guys ever had canker sores. They're the worst thing in America. Ugh. Okay. Welcome to part number 3 of Day 9 Daily number 473, where we learn to be a better gamer and smack our lips painfully. In this game, we are starting to see this relationship between our army size and where we expand, and most notably, how we position those units to defend these expansions. In this particular circumstance, with a Broodlord Infestor army clumped here, we can defend this base, this bottom right base, and this seems like another healthy addition to our little resourcing. Where would we definitely need to put up some defenses? Well, here, we can certainly build 4, even 5 spore crawlers. There's nothing wrong with doing the full wall of spores. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hell, we could even probably fit into 6. 6 or so spines here, and then boom, this area is completely and totally defended against most threatening drops. That might sound excessive, but as a matter of fact, tons of incredibly good Zergs have started to incorporate that and completely shut Terran players down. Stefano on Antica Shipyard. Suppose that he's at the corner. He'll build some spore crawlers by these fingertips, some spore crawlers by these, and what does that mean? He can't be dropped. So he just has all his units attacking all game long. Attack! And it's super difficult to deal with. So even with this defensively constructed Broodlord Infestor army, we can be willing to do it. But what we're going to see from BratOK is just the complete and total exploitation of the slowness of these Broodlords. He's just going to attack in 15 different places at once. And the more places you are attacking at once, the better. We see the attack going on here, splitting these guys up, even leaving some units over here to threaten this base. Even though this got cleaned up, still means that we know where the Zerglings are, and we can go ahead and push elsewhere. All the while this is going on, it's very difficult for the Zerg player to, say, execute effective counterattacks because he's not going Ling Infestor. He's not going to have a ton of Zerglings. I mean, he does have 57, but given the fact that the amazing Ibex cannon one-shots Zerglings, and you can repair, it's not going to go down quite quickly at all. If you have like 100-some Zerglings and some Banelings, yeah, maybe you can do a counterattack to clean this up. But either way, doing these relentless, multi-pronged attacks, you're just going to start picking off these expansions. So the whole reason that Nerchio ended up losing these is because he had to pull these Broodlords back a little bit due to this attack going on over here. Now, we see Nerchio taking an expansion. By the way, BratOK continuing to do the smart thing. Doesn't matter that this is kind of a sacrificial attack. It's going to pull most of everything back. But this suddenly gets Nerchio into a really difficult position. In Nerchio's spot, it would likely have been a better idea just to retake this base, not do this, and focus on redefending here. By taking whatever can be taken faster, suddenly, when Nerchio decides to move out and make an attack, he has a huge vulnerability. Look at this, 5 Marines. And the rest of the fleet is getting ready to move over there to take this out. The whole frickin' damn thing. Even more Marines end up coming up, getting completely annihilated, but oh no, as we're up here at this side, now there's a big push moving down to the bottom right side. Notice that this push doesn't actually end up quite panning out. It's not like he attacked and instantly killed this off. But look at what it's making the Broodlords do. They're just sort of going one way and sort of going back the other way. You know, an attempted counterattack was not really kind of panning out. BratOK is just doing the smart, usual thing of just hitting a lot of places at once. Notice how even hitting this from the bottom and this from the top feels like giving this army split focus. It's just so slow that even the bottom of the base and the top of the base feels like kind of a big distance. All the while taking out this expansion. 6 Marines. Not huge attacks all over the place, just lots of attacks. In any amount of small numbers. It's great. Now, BratOK does engage here a little bit. Loses a good amount of stuff. But still, I would be slowly giving the advantage to BratOK in this situation. BratOK is mining minerals off like 2, or probably even 1.5 bases, I guess you'd call it. But still has mainly minerals. So he can make the mobile army that he needs. Just little small attacks here and there. So now finally Nerchio is in a position where he doesn't have this sort of distracting expansion. He can resume back and expand to the bottom right, which is probably where he would want to be expanding to. Position this army here. But attacking, not terrible. Actually, it's great. There's nothing wrong with doing this sort of Broodlord attacking play. But this needs to be defended in some way. A lot of spines. 2-3 infestors. Because you don't actually need all the infestors there with all the Broodlords to do all the damage. And per usual, BratOK just goes for the counterattack. Even if you're trading bases, it's still alright. Like, this is one of the most dangerous moves you can make as Zerg, unless you're about to expand here, intending to sacrifice this here. Completely owns this expansion. Can even shut this down too, but loses a lot of bases. And this is actually not particularly complicated. This is just the same idea happening again and 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 again, and it's just working, right? It's just doing a little bit more damage every time. Another nice play here, lift up into this medevac and just drop down there. Just to make sure that you are still putting on pressure in as many locations as you can at once. Alright, cool, look, BratOK continuing to split up. I would love a drop down in that main right now. That would be amazing. Would really peel him back. And now we see BratOK able to take up some expansions of his own. From the expanding side, BratOK, it's okay to just start doing a lot of mass expanding. I honestly think that if you're against an army as slow as Broodlord Infestor, pretty much any reasonable expanding pattern is going to be comfortable, as long as they're just the nearer by expansions like that. This is a touch risky, especially if he has the ability to do some sort of switch to Ling Ultralisk, which is something that Zergs are doing very commonly at high levels. But there are many Zergs at the sort of like Nerchio is extremely high level. I will also note that there are many Zergs who are in the mid masters and lower, even hell, actually. There's plenty of Zergs who, when they start going Broodlord Infestor, they never stop going Broodlord Infestor. So this is a simple example to wrap the head around, just due to the fact that there's not a lot of change coming from the Zerg point of view. During the break, there were many Terrans who were basically saying that I can do no damage to Zerg early on, so that way he's gonna just get a ton of Broodlord Infestor, and there's no way to deal with that. What the hell do I do? And this is I think, just such a great example from the Terran point of view, where even with some pretty botched attacks, and some pretty nice plays by Nerchio throughout, once Nerchio starts going only Broodlord Infestor, we see the same move pulled off again and again and again and again and again and again. The more mobile, the better. Thor, Marine, Viking, Medevac, not a lot of tanks. If you do have tanks, leave them unsieged. Run up and pick off the infestors. So this is kind of cool. This is actually a little bit more comfortable for Nerchio. He doesn't have an expansion he has to defend anymore. Yay! If Nerchio's pushing up here, he should be taking this expansion and focusing on this. But honestly, at this point, I think a good... Actually, not the worst decision ever would actually be just to retake this and sit here, and then retake that, and sit here, and just let Terran get these two bases. I actually don't think that is that terrible. So at this point, I think that, especially the casters were, saying that, yeah, Nerchio still has the Army of Doom. I mean, look at that difference. 4,500, 3,500 versus a 2,900, 7,750 or 77.5 army. I mean, it's just, it ain't looking so good. But BratOK just expands away from the whole army and continues to do these little swing around counters oh so effectively. The whole freaking army has to come back, and while this is going on, the double expand? No, certainly not. And as a general rule, just be wherever the Broodlords are not. So attack down here, pull all the way back around. Attack down there, pull all the way back around. Doubly so. In this ultra late stage, I would probably favor Infestation Pit and Pool over the Greater Spire, but I mean, if you can kill off any buildings, that's going to be good. I generally hate Infestors and Zerglings the most in small numbers. I hate Broodlords the least in small numbers. And now suddenly BratOK has turned it all around. Not much more to analyze. So what I'll do is I'll just talk about how incredibly sweet a series of moves that was by BratOK. And look, he's still doing it. Look at that going all the way around. Not in the fastest path, but in the path that is most likely to have no Broodlords there. And is most likely to force Broodlords to move all the way over. A minimap ping from one of the commentators. Yet again, attacking all the way up here leads to death in the main. God, BratOK is so awesome. So amazing. My analysis is absent. What left is there to analyze? What left is there to analyze? Still avoiding it until the bitter end, avoiding the Broodlords. These poor little Broodlords never got to engage. Those poor, sad little Broodlords. Look at that, just expanding at the opposite end. Running through, killing drones. Killing buildings. Killing drones, running around. Getting owned. Getting owned. God, Broodlord Infestor is really good. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Nerchio is getting revealed. He's building extractors. He's got the money mix for certain. Dying Spore Crawler. Should be unburrowed. It's a building. It won't be. Bam. Still running around. But one building remains. But one single building remains. And still running around. I mean, just like taking these small groups is just never bad. Continuing to expand away, attack away, going anywhere else but those units. Kind of a cool vision wall from our Zergy buddy. Unbelievable! Alright, this is what I'm going to do. I will now open questions. Let me go to my Nerchio question grabber. Day9 TV. That is the password to that. I'm going to be taking some questions, but allow me to note, of course, Fun Day Monday for next week. Play a Zerg Neural Parasite and SCV or Probe and build up that race using it to kill your opponent. We'll have the lulls. Submit that to Monday at day9.tv so we can do a freaking Fun Day Monday. It's been like 2 months since we've had one. Ugh. Pray with me that this ant colony finally dies. God, I hope they die. There's like so many ants in here. Whatever. Yeah. Play Magic if you haven't already. God. Oh my god. Oh my god. Dude, if StarCraft were like Magic, you'd have people saying stories like, well, I mean, I had a better strategy, but when he built Zerglings, Ultralisks came out instead. I guess I just gotta keep playing until I get that game where Zerglings come out like they're supposed to. What do you mean a turn 5 Wolfear Silverheart? Fuck. Alright. Alright, I have a strong opinion on this. Ah, my screen blipped. From Laxen 212. Day 9, what do you think about throwing in some ghosts into the Terran's mix of things? Ghosts were once upon a time the money mix against the Zerg's late game. You'd have Terran player trying to get like 50, 60 ghosts, so that way the snipe and EMPs would just shut down any number of ultras. Ultras you'd snipe, Broodlords you'd snipe, Infestors you'd snipe and EMP, Zerglings you just direct attack. Roaches were like the only thing that caused that much of a problem, but then you just have a few tanks. But the real issue with ghosts is that it's very hard to get a lot of them, and the process of starting to go ghosts and starting to amass up ghosts takes forever, and it forces the Terran to be passive. The thing about going Marine, Viking, Thor is that you can do it instantly. You can rip right into that composition and continue to be aggressive. So I kind of strongly prefer having no ghosts in the mix. It would interrupt things a little too much. If we were at something like it was a 5 base versus 5 base, no one could really attack the other person, that's a good time to go ghost, when all of a sudden it's become quite passive. But increasingly Zergs are just staying aggressive. It's really good. It's really good for Zergs to be aggressive, so the Terran has to have some sort of mobile force and be counter-aggressive. From Mr. Ghosty, Day 9, what if Zerg just attacked BratOK's base instead of trying to chase those Marines around? I mean, exactly what you think happens, and it is as annoying as you'd think happens. The Terran player just goes for a base trade and kills you, and just never engages a Broodlord force, and just floats all the buildings to opposite corners and lands and reproduces. They get a little wacky, but I've seen so many games where the Terran player is just like, alright, I'll base trade, that seems fine, that seems totally great. Okay, so TJHIR, or TJ Hiri 29 says, Day 9, as a Terran player, if there are not multiple attack paths, what could I do? Is dropping an option instead of attacking in one path and attacking the other path as well? Yeah, dropping certainly is a good option, but I want you to get a little bit creative with these sort of different attack openings. Like, let me open up a map where there's really not that many. Let me go to multiplayer, 1v1, map preferences. Most of them are pretty good. Okay, here's one. Can you not... Oh, that's right, you have to go to create. Let me... There we go. A map like Shakura's Plateau, right? We have, there's basically a center. So Broodlord's parking here and sort of marching along the map is quite effective. However, you can drop along this side, you can drop along this side, you can knock down these pair of rocks and these pair of rocks and do wanderings in along the top, and of course wanderings in along the bottom, like that. Even on a map like Antigua Shipyard. If you look at it, I'm going to choose this bottom right base. If you have these bottom right 3 bases, it seems like there's really only one attack path, which is right through the middle. Even then, if Broodlords are, you know, like poaching all the way out in the middle of the map, there's nothing wrong with walking Marines here and then walking them stemmed like sharply along this edge, and even picking off these destructible rocks and running them sharply in, like attacking once here and then a second time down here is still a reasonable amount. The idea is that you just want to be as avoiding of the Broodlords as you possibly can. With maps with a lot of attack paths, you start to see it become quite dynamic, but even on maps where there seem not to be, you can force the weakness of the Broodlords to be felt just by avoiding them a lot, and especially she's like tugging along the sides of the map. Doing the last question. During the last question. Oh, yeah, I love this one. Woo! From A.B. Zoni. Day 9, you mentioned that you should start dropping often when you start to see Hive Tech, but what if they have a ton of Corruptors positioned properly for drops in preparation before they get their Broodlords? Get aggressive with your Marine Viking mix. force him to have all his stuff in one location, drop somewhere else. Okay, so what were we talking about in the mid-game? We said that if you see his Mutalisk in one place, or see the Infestors in one place, you drop the other, and Zerglings will have to go there. You can do the same sort of logic against a Broodlord Infestor force, except it's the Corruptors you tend to be looking for maximum safety. It begins with the Broodlords. You say, where are the Broodlords? Okay, I kind of want to drop. Does he have his Corruptors there? No. Well, let me just attack that with my Vikings. Here come the Corruptors. Run! And then drop him. It's really, really, really easy to manipulate the Broodlord Infestor force because all those pieces need to be there. Infestors alone suck. Broodlords alone suck. Corruptors alone can't shoot half the units. So, if you even Infestor Broodlord, so vulnerable to Vikings. So, if you just start getting in his face, especially with Vikings, he's going to have all three of those critical pieces together. And then you fucking drop him. There will be dailies tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And Fun Day Monday next week. It's good to be back. Thank you for joining me on my daily. Woohoo! I'll be back in 22 point something hours. See you then. Doo 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 doo.